ইয়াতে মানুহবোৰ ইয়াতে জইন কৰিব ন কোন কোন জইন কৰিব কোন কোন যেনেকৈ মেমতে থাকিব মেমতে জইন কৰা নাই কৰিব ন সবৰটো মিউট আছে
Devopriya Ba, can you please unmute? क्या वो क्वेश्चन Hello. Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
It is question.
To where my
Do you hear any echo sound?
yeah, Archita?
Is there any echo?
এতিয়া নাই আৰু
No, I'm not, ma'am. Oh, here of the item one.
No, I'm not getting any echo.
Used our. Okay, okay, ma'am. We are also live in YouTube.
We are? Okay.
Yes.
That's good.
If you can check your
I
phone,
don't-
like if you can check it through your phone, you can see it at YouTube live.
So what do? I go to the link,
Link, yes, ma'am.
but I am on my phone on Google Meet.
Oh,
so can I
okay,
still?
okay.
I can't do it. Sir will probably he didn't register. He forgot to register. So can he can join. He can still join, na? Sir,
Yes,
he will
ma'am.
still
Yes,
be
yes,
able to
ma'am.
join.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
It's not mandatory
From-
to register.
Yeah.
Yeah, from either of the links. He'll also have to use his phone. That's why, the script is on my phone,
Hmm.
and that's why I sent you a message, Devapriya. and Archita, I
Yes,
sent
ma'am.
the message about that I will not be able to help with the script. So Pranjana
Yes,
and
ma'am.
the three of you remember.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. Devapra, did you send the script to me also via WhatsApp? I mean,
I'm
not to open.
sending.
Yeah,
Sending.
please do. Hopefully, we won't. I won't have to step in.
Hopefully nobody will have to step in, but as you suggested ना
Yes.
होना चाहिए होने से अच्छा है.
Ma'am, send.
Okay, my phone keeps falling off the stand, so I'll get a rubber band. Hang on.
We are live.
Huh?
Yeah, so that's why I was listening to myself once again. It was probably through YouTube.
Yes, ma'am.
I
Jyoti,
heard myself
J-
twice.
Jyoti, we are live on YouTube. You can see. You can log in from either. Abhi YouTube is already live.
Keep my script open.
So I'm going to put a rubber band around my phone so that it doesn't keep falling off the stand. The kind of things I have to do.
Yeah. Also, Hiragda is also here. He's joining us Altai Guwahati.
Okay, Hirak, can we see your face so that we can take a picture? Hi, thank you for helping us. Hi, Achita photo le lo fun se.
Haha. Okay, one, two, three. Done.
So this is our team. I don't know who's calling me now. 8 minutes.
Mm. So we are ready with everything, technical side, script, everything. We just need to wait for ma'am, PB ma'am.
No need to remind ma'am once, no? It's fine, no?
I hope so. YouTube live is a bit slow, like 30 seconds. It might get delayed.
Yeah, that's what
Pranya,
I
did you
realized.
hear? Now, you girls, teach me something. If a phone call comes, my this got disconnected, and I don't want to disconnect. What do I do?
What
Ma'am,
should I
you have no
do?
other option.
So what do I do? I
Ma'am's
don't
connection is not
receive the
stable
call or
probably today.
cancel it.
Ma'am, your connection is not stable,
I'm
I think. Your voice is breaking.
yeah, so I'm in on data. Thankfully, I don't have to. On mobile data. Well, I will see if I can change my. Ritu, Jyoti, Jyoti, connection ठीक नहीं आ रहा है इधर.
So,
Can you help me set up on dining table? या मेरा ठीक नहीं आ रहा है. ब्रेक पर अभी
I will turn on the recording after Devapriya makes that announcement about recording. No?
Yeah. Okay.
I asked her me say for the so son everywhere. So anyway, sir is trying to Can you hear me? Do you hear what I said?
And your voice is still breaking
Yeah.
Yeah.
because of network
Okay,
issues.
I will try to speak. I'll just stay quiet. I will stay quiet.
I just bring
पता
my
क्या
charger
है,
and keep it
रहने
working.
दो, तो मुझे तो बोला नहीं है. यहाँ से लेके पिन से लगा दो, बस ऐसे लटकाने बोलो उसको, नॉट टू. PBM is not here yet. She'll come after maybe.
Eden has been trying to join since yesterday.
Aiden. Ranjana, you can't hear me at all.
Yeah, this part I could hear, ma'am. This part. Ranjana, I could not hear me at all. So that part I could hear.
Who is trying to join us? Eden,
Eden,
right?
Shisharenla.
Try to move my. Okay.
A lot of people are trying to join now. Maybe we will 5 minutes at exactly at 4 we'll start the webinar. Na? Exactly
Yes,
at
ma'am.
4. We'll start admitting people.
Yes,
Or
ma'am.
Just now
or
one.
5 minutes before.
5 minutes before, maybe.
5 minutes before we will admit people
Yeah, yeah.
so that we can begin exactly at 4. Na?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay. So
yes.
3:55 we will
Mm-hmm.
start admitting people.
I think PBM should have joined by now.
Yeah, maybe one of us should give her a call.
I hope she still doesn't think that she has to join at
7.
7. Yeah.
Uh, who will call, ma'am?
Should I call, ma'am?
Or Archita? Okay,
Yeah.
Archita, please go ahead.
Okay, is my voice slightly better, Ranjana?
Yes, it's slightly better, ma'am.
Okay.
Now your
Okay,
voice is not breaking.
I'm at the dining table now.
So इससे different मैं कुछ कर नहीं सकती हूँ. Yeah. Okay. It's a good thing that I don't have to give the talk. Thank you, Kathy. You join the YouTube, yeah, whatever. You can.
So I have called PB ma'am. She will be joining in 2 minutes.
Okay. So are we all properly in the frame? Pranjana is Archita and Devapriya. Come into the frame. Yes, you are also Devapriya. Devapriya is looking very radiant today.
Yes.
Happy. And मैं थोड़ा सा नीचे हूँ ना, but I can't help it. So ठीक है. Otherwise my phone गिर जाता है.
But you look good, ma'am.
Well, I've gone and I had my beauty sleep, and then out of 7 minutes, Devapriya kept me awake. उसके बाद मैं सो गई. And of course, you put the lipstick on, and that does the, you know. Magic.
Yes.
Kajal and lipstick. That is what. So that's why I wanted a pic. You know, are we live?
Yes.
मैं कुछ भी बोलती जा रही हूँ.
Hi, ma'am. Yeah. Come. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. All the best.
Hi, thank you.
All the best.
Hi,
You know what?
sir.
My role is to stay quiet. It's Palash. I have spoken all this while. Now I'll be quiet. So Archita and I have backgrounds. Padmini ma'am's bookshelf has arrived. Now ma'am will come.
Yes.
Oh, I don't
Yes.
have a
There she is.
bookshelf. There ma'am is there. First the bookshelf and then PV ma'am. Tell me now, bookshelf, how to get the
Ma'am, you are
bookshelf?
muted.
Yeah, I went to switch on the light. There was not enough light. And Archita, thank you for calling me because I was looking at the presentation once again and I need to change it. And before, without realizing it, it was almost 4.
Also, ma'am,
Babu,
just a reminder, we
सामने
are
का
also
light
live in
जला दो.
YouTube now.
No,
Light.
don't now. Don't do it now. Right? Don't do it now. Are you
Oh, you want
ready?
live? Should
You have
should
already.
we stop
Okay.
streaming?
It's
Are we
53.
live?
We still we are already live on YouTube, but
Yes. But there's
we have
no
not started
participants yet.
streaming. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, not showing. You should start admitting people because somebody can play
Yeah,
mine.
we've already started, ma'am.
I should be able to do my own thing because otherwise it's people will. I mean, even I don't like it having to say, "Start, please show."
Ma'am, you can do one thing. You can first leave the meeting and then open the PPT and then join and then try to present to that work. I think.
Sorry, you're saying something to me.
Yes, ma'am. I'm saying it to
What
you.
I said?
Ma'am, you can do one thing. You can leave the meeting, open the PPT, then
Yeah,
you join the meeting and then try to present. I think
that is what I
that day.
did. That is what we do. That is the only way to do it,
If you can do
right?
it.
Not.
Yeah, yes,
I'm
ma'am.
going to leave the meeting and join again.
Mm-hmm.
UBO. Let me copy the.
Haripriya has raised her hand, but we are not going to respond right now.
No, ma'am, it was just by mistake. So don't worry.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
I was trying to.
okay, okay. I think we should begin the meeting and Let us hope that Padmini ma'am is able to rejoin soon. Or should we wait
I
for a
have
couple
joined.
of
I'm here. Let me open it up. Last resort, but it won't be my animations. Ranjana, can you open it up?
Okay. I'll share the screen, ma'am.
Yes. Try doing that because I am not being able to do it. So trying several times. One last time, huh? No, it's just not showing. I do not know why.
There it is. There it is. Okay,
Yeah.
we can see your.
Yeah, but that's from Ranjana. Now I have to keep telling her. Ranjana, full screen Korea
Okay. Give me a second.
will be a problem. Ranjana, full screen Korea.
Uh, Archita, please keep adding people. Huh? Is it full screen now?
Yes, it is.
Right, Debopriya, let us
Ma'am,
begin.
Okay.
ma'am, can you please, before that, can you please make us the co-host so that we
Co-host.
can also,
Yes, ma'am.
yes, we are not able to admit people.
Admit. Yes.
Okay. You free are co-host already co-host.
Um.
I'm also not getting notifications.
Okay. That's all right. I will add people.
Okay, Debopriya.
I,
Ranjana, you will
Yes.
have to follow my lead because I might forget. I might keep wondering why the slide hasn't changed because I'm not used to having someone else do it for
Yeah.
me. So
Mm-hmm.
just try
I'll
to,
have to follow your presentations. Yeah. And
yeah,
maybe sometimes you'll have to give me a bubble hint as well.
yeah, I don't know what to do. Yeah. Okay. Good evening. Good evening.
okay. I'm starting. Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. I warmly welcome you to today's online talk on gender construction through language, reflecting on gender in discourse in English language teaching, organized by the ELTI Guwahati chapter in collaboration with the Department of English Language Teaching, Guwahati University. Before we begin, I would like to inform you that this session will be recorded and we will be live streaming this session on YouTube. We are grateful to Professor Padmini Bhuya Burua for accepting our invitation for the talk. We are also delighted to have participants from diverse backgrounds, teachers, students, and DLT enthusiasts joining us today. The format for today's session will be the speaker will present for about 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute question and answer session, which will be moderated by Ms. Archita Gogoi, Research Scholar, Department of English Language Teaching, Guwahati University. Now, I would like to invite Archita to moderate the session.
Thank you, Devapriya. Hello, everyone. I will be your moderator for today's session. Before we begin, I would like to give a quick reminder. Please post your questions in the chat box during the talk or raise your hand during the question and answer session. I will make sure as many questions as possible are addressed. We also appreciate your feedback, and so we will share a feedback form link after our guest speaker finishes the talk. And I request you all to fill up that form by today so that we can share the certificates. Now, before we start today's presentation, I would take a moment to introduce the Guwahati chapter of the English Language Teachers Association of India, or ELTI, a national organization committed to the advancement and promotion of English language teaching across India. Founded in March 2017, the ELTI Guwahati chapter has been actively engaged in a range of outreach activities aimed at enhancing English language teaching in classrooms. Initially, focusing on direct classroom interactions, we are gradually expanding our initiatives to include workshops, seminars, and collaborative events that foster the professional growth of English language educators in the region. The Guwahati chapter has always aspired to be a vital platform for bringing together teachers, offering them opportunities for networking, skill development, and meaningful collaboration. Through events like this webinar, we aim to create a space where educators can share insights, explore innovative teaching methodologies, and stay informed on the latest trends in English language teaching. This webinar reflects our ongoing commitment to empowering educators, equipping them with the tools and knowledge necessary to enhance their teaching practices and shape the future of ELT in our region and beyond. Now I request Debupriya to please introduce our guest speaker for today.
Thank you, Archita. Now it is my privilege to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Padmini Bhuya Borua. She is currently Professor and Head, Department of English Language Teaching, Guwahati University, India, where she teaches undergraduate and postgraduate programs in ELT and supervises PhD research. A teacher, trainer, and educator at school, college, and university levels, she advises on national and state language education policy and practice, ELT curriculum development in higher education, and textbook preparation at the school level. A 2020 Fulbright Fellow at the University of San Diego, California, she is currently involved in 2 international research projects on exploration of multilingual classroom practices in government, regional medium, and English medium schools. The first in collaboration with the University of Cambridge, EFL University Hyderabad and JNU, and the second, the British Council Action Research Mentoring Scheme, that is the ARMS project with other colleagues of the department in ELT. Her recent publications include books and book chapters on English language education and social inequality, neoliberalization, and English medium instruction, language teacher agency in multilingual contexts, and translingual practices in English language classroom, published by Routledge, Multilingual Matters, and Springer. Dr. Borua and her department have also been tasked by the state government to conduct residential capacity building training of 1,000 secondary level English teachers last year and 800 this year, and also more than 500 teachers of government English medium schools in recent years. Over to you, Archita.
Thank you, Devapriya, for introducing our guest. Before I hand over the session to our guest speaker, I would request the participants to kindly keep your audio and video off. Thank you. Now, without further delay, let's hand over the screen to Professor Borua. I invite ma'am to please begin your talk.
Thank you very much, Archita. And before I begin, I would like to take a moment to thank the ELT Guwahati chapter, especially Professor Anita Tamuli, the convener of the chapter, and all the colleagues and members of this organization, and also the Department of ELT, of which I am a member. For some reason, I have not been able to present my talk. So I'm grateful that Dr. Pranjana Kolitana is going to help me here. Pranjana, please do remind me if I forget to tell you to change the slide. It's not easy,
Sure,
but
ma'am.
thank you very much. I hope that at the end of the session, there will be some questions, some suggestions, and anything else that my esteemed colleagues here would like to discuss within the given time. Archita, you remember, you will also remind me 10 minutes early
Yes,
that I have to finish. Thank you so much. Ranjana, can we have the presentation, please? Okay, so I'm calling this talk a reflection. This is something that I've been very passionate about lately. I've been thinking about, reading about, and teaching about the way gender and discourse impacts English language teaching practices in our contexts, and why it is necessary to have a conversation around gender in English language teaching, especially in teaching materials and pedagogy. Now, my presentation, Pranjana. Pranjana, please move my slide. Yeah. Two perspectives will inform today's presentation. The first is that it is important to, Ranjana, you'll have to keep following me and keep doing that. Otherwise, we'll take double the time to finish this presentation. Please start showing. Okay. So the two perspectives that will inform today's session is that I've realized more how important it is to contest the idea that the male is the norm. So, and also the fact that we have traditionally been focusing on heteronormativity, uh, privileging one gender over others. And I'm deeply moved by the young Indonesian poet called Norman Pasirabu, who said, if you don't see yourself on a page, you don't exist. Now, Pasirabu is a gay poet, and he said that when he was growing up, he did not find anybody like him in the textbooks that he studied. And he grew up thinking of how abnormal he was. So, this kind of socialization, this kind of message that we get is not something that builds an inclusive, just, or diverse society, which UNESCO and the UN and all of us have been talking about, have been thinking about for the past several decades. The other perspective is to challenge disenfranchisement, which is that uh, Pranjana, please keep moving. All right, with me. So the need to challenge disenfranchisement, to challenge the fact that without realizing we marginalize many different groups, even though we talk about diversity through our language, through our actions, through our educational practices, we perpetuate one single story. And one single story, the danger of a single story, for those of you who are familiar with the work of Chimamanda Adichie, she talks about how, growing up in Nigeria and then moving to the US, she encountered many instances of people wondering how she spoke good English, wondering how she could speak English, because all their lives they had had this stereotype being fed into their psyches that the people who speak English with an American accent or perhaps with a British accent are people who have to look a certain way. And she talks about how she herself fell prey to this when she traveled to Mexico for the first time, and then was very surprised that Mexicans spoke English as well. So she caught herself and she realized that she was also a victim of being fed one kind of thinking, one kind of perception about humanity. So these are both important things to critique, and gender is a very important part of it. And as this slide shows you, we have we are used to such comments, we are used to accepting views like these. There are so many jokes that we see, we make, we share on social media about how women behave and how men behave. And this is something we need to think about more carefully, because through language, through visuals, we perpetuate certain ways of looking at gender, and especially marginalized genders such as women and other genders. Now, it is important that we look at the way language works, and in our case, the English language, because uh, this is something that Dale Spender, a very important writer of language and gender, mentioned way back in 1980. She says that if the rules that underlie our language itself are not valid, then we are deceived daily and we do not even realize what we are being deceived about. And we grew up, we think, and our thinking is very heavily influenced by the way we encounter language in our day-to-day lives. Um, so we need to remember that talking about gender is important because we are, in our institutions, in our colleges and schools and universities, we are dealing with adults, young adults, who are able to use all their resources through a new language that they're learning. And here we're talking about English, as we all know, and how we are more and more using English to find our way in the world. So, the way we use language is something that we learn in school and in the society in which we grow. And the way we use language, the English language, affects not just our academic work, it also affects the way we uh, join the workforce and become future citizens. Now, in education, we should be talking about gender responsive language in all spheres, right from education policy and planning to curricula to pedagogy and to assessment. Today, I'm not going to be able to cover all of this, but we have to remember that Kanjana, both teachers and students are affected by gender texts because they represent our gendered identities, the way we talk, our discourses, and also our practices. So, curriculum and language and identity are closely related because curriculum influences how young people understand the world. And that is how we all learn to center certain kinds of people while marginalizing others, consciously, but more dangerously, also subconsciously. The influence of on language, when we talk about the influence of language, we are talking about two things once again. One, how language reveals, Ranjana, how language reveals gender, how it embodies gender, and how it continues to, to influence our attitudes to gender, and also how we write and how we speak. That perpetuates gender normativity, or if we are educated in a certain way, we are able to resist the gender stereotyping consciously in our educational practices. Now, look at this. This is how we see language in the world around us. What is it that you notice about this? Do you notice what I'm noticing? Do you notice certain kinds of stereotyping? So, this is, as you can see, an advertisement for garments. Look at the way the young boy and the young girl are being described and defined. So the little boy is the little scholar, while the little girl is the social butterfly. So these terminologies, these definitions that we are so used to are extremely harmful because they perpetuate the way we think about girls and boys. So just the use of language can lead to different kinds of gender stereotyping. I like this quotation, and it has made me think about how we do not realize that language is not just about words, it is also about attitudes. So if you see this, just imagine how society works, how all of us think about a bachelor and then think about a spinster. I remember, movies and books that I grew up with have and also society and people around me have all made me think of a spinster as somebody, very sad old lady, perhaps with a cat, slightly eccentric. That's been my mental image of a spinster. So if you think of this grammatically, the word bachelor and the word spinster. We have all learned about this in our English lessons. When we do male and female, we've all gone through this. We have all learned about this. We have all memorized this, used this. But we have not perhaps thought about how these words may have affected the way we think. So we found that uh, stereotyping is something that has not come arbitrarily. There's a very intricate relationship between gender and language uh, because of some conventions prescribed by grammarians. So it's not arbitrary. As you can see, even in the 16th and the 17th centuries, grammars prescribed that the male terms should always precede female terms, and this was more natural and more proper. So, gender stereotyping has been there even in English grammar and for centuries now. In the 19th century, this idea was, kept being perpetuated. So, as you can see from this example, there's a rule that says that singular pronoun has to be used with words like anyone or anybody, because the neutral pronouns they and their in a statement like this would violate number agreement. So even if you did not want to, you were tasked with speaking and writing the English language grammatically, and to do so, you were encouraged to use the male pronoun everywhere as the default. By doing that, society has taught us that the male, for some reason, is the default, is the correct version, and any other gender is secondary or marginal or not as important. And we have realized that gender neutral terms began to be recorded only in the latter half of the 20th century. Only then did actually we start seeing gender neutral terminology in the grammar books. Now, linguistic differences between men's and women's languages also came about through these books that you see. So, very influential people, even someone like Otto Jespersen, have written extensively about the differences between men's language and women's language. So, it is not just about the differences or the norms of gender usage that we find in grammars. There have actually been a lot of writing about why and how women and men speak differently and should speak differently. There's been a lot of research on the differences between men's and women's languages. Now, some of it has been very helpful, but some of it has also been uh, less helpful, because they have made us again influence the way we think about women uh, and the female gender. So, some of the influential 20th century theorists who have studied gender in the English language there are many, but these five are the most important. And between the five of them, they have given us at least three different kinds of theoretical approaches to the study of language and gender. Pranjana? So the first is called the nature versus nurture theory. Uh, then we have report versus rapport. And then we also have dominance and difference. So these are some kinds of theoretical presentations that have been very popular and have influenced the way we look at gender in the English language. Now, nature and nurture, as you can see, we have, for example, Atkins and Eakins talk about the fact that when children adopt linguistic behavior considered appropriate to their gender, they perpetuate the social order, which creates gender distinctions. And so, it is, this study claims that it is not just nature, it is also nurture that creates distinctions between men and the use of language to denote men and women, and also the gender binaries that we are now trying to contest. Uh, there are differences, there are sex differences. We know that there are differences, but many of these, by differences I mean the differences between how we think men behave and speak and women behave and speak, or how society has expectations from men and women. These are true. Now, because there is truth in this, these have been studied in detail. For example, if you move to the next slide, Pranjana, we have extensive studies being done by Robin Lecoff in 1975, where she talks about, she records a long list. This is just a representative list. She talks about all of these. She suggests and she claims that women's language is very different from men's. So she says that women use a lot of hedging expressions. They do not use slang. They do not curse. They apologize a lot. They suggest more than declare. They use a lot of empty adjectives and so on. So her study, after her study, we have continued to think of and study men's language and women's language. And there have been a lot of studies about these perceived ways of behavior demonstrated by the language that women use. Deborah Cameron talks about what she calls verbal hygiene. And this is again something that we are all familiar with across cultures, in our cultures, in Western cultures, in non Western cultures. It has traditionally been that women are encouraged to behave in what is called feminine ways. Now, feminine ways, so women are not supposed to speak very loud, women are not supposed to talk a lot. Any kind of feminine behavior is admired, is admired, congratulated, encouraged. Women are taught not to speak in a certain way, not to sit in a certain way, and if women do, then they are looked down upon. It is very common even in our own cultures to hear expressions that say the equivalence of, say, this girl, she's such a tomboy, she's so unfeminine. So, being notions of femininity, notions of uh, language are very, very intricately related to how women are perceived in society. Perceptions are fed through language, and language is also influenced by perceptions. So these are things that I think we are all familiar with. Then there is, how women have rapport and men report is another claim that was made during this time. And we find a whole list of differences in behavior between, supposed behavior between men and between women. Now, these are all stereotypes, and because they are stereotypes, they have become stereotypes because we have heard them talked about them, believe them so much, so that we continue to teach our girls to behave in these ways. We continue to admonish girls and women when they do this. We continue to talk about and laugh about, joke about the way we perpetuate the stereotypes. And also, when we do not, it also somehow makes for laughter. And women themselves, we women ourselves, share jokes about our own stereotypes. Now, there's been a lot of study about whether this is something that negatively influences the way we look at men and women. So the dominance and difference theory, which we is also something very crucial to the study of language and gender, especially in the late 20th century. Uh, these are interesting ways of looking at the differences between men's behavior and language and women's. Dominance theory came from a study done by Zimmerman and West at UC Santa Barbara, and they studied conversations, 31 segments, and they came to the conclusion that in mixed sex conversations, men interrupt more dominance. So men dominate in conversations. That's what the study was about. I'm just giving you a very simplistic summary. The difference theory is a little more elaborate. She says of conversations, men pairs of contrasts were described by Tannen. She says that in mixed conversations, men seek to show their status, while women are more about gaining support. Women's discussions, women's language. Similarly, she talks about independence versus intimacy. For women, closeness is more important. For men, more independence is more important, and their language reflects this. Then we go on to advice versus understanding. This says that a man is more comfortable finding a solution, while a woman usually expects understanding more than a solution. And similarly, women share feelings, men share information. These are some of the some contrast. There's another set called order versus proposal, where women display intentions while men usually speak more directly. Uh, Similarly, Tannen also talks about versus compromise. Women are found to to oppose the will of others, while men fight more. So men disagree more, and they are more that have shaped the way we think about women's behavior through language in the 20th century. Now, moving on, we also find that there was at some point a study of neurosexism, which wanted to find out or investigate whether male and female brains are different. Is that why men and women talk differently and behave differently? Uh, it was found that there's actually nothing like that, and the differences that have been so popular were actually not really holding up to research. So, after this, in fact, even during the 20th century, there have been studies that have critiqued these theories of nurture versus nature, difference and dominance, etc. For example, one study by Obar and Atkins studied not just 31 small samples of speech. They studied courtroom cases to find out, to examine whether the speech differences that Robin Lakoff had talked about were actually true. But they found that whatever differences were there were actually situation specific, and they had more to do about power and authority than gender. So this study talks about the fact that the differences that were so popular, which made us kind of accept that, oh, women will talk differently, women will use different kind of language because that's what women are. This kind of attitude towards gendered use of language has been critiqued by researchers such as Obar and Atkins. Then we also find BT study in 1982, where BT recorded many interruptions, and this study looked at interruptions to see whether interruptions necessarily reflected dominance. And the findings were that women and men actually interrupted quite similarly. There wasn't anything significant. So now this study is obviously a more robust study because it had a far greater sample population, and therefore their findings have been holding ground. Then we have Pamela Fishman, who also studied mixed sex interactions. And she also came to the conclusion that women ask questions because of power, not because of personality weakness. So there have been these critical perspectives on the idea that men and women behave and talk differently because of their gender. Now, in the after the 1990s, there have been more nuanced approaches to gender. So now we have started talk. I mean, not now. In the recent decades, we've started talking about more about doing gender than being in a certain gender, because language use is extremely complex. It's socially guided, and we realize that there's been a lot of micro political activities. So micro politics. uh, I'm not going to go and talk about what macro politics is, but then we realize that the uh, fact that gender is not something given, and it is more about performativity, is something that you can move on, Prantana, is something that is interesting. Cameron, for example, compared what she called modern and postmodern perspectives. And this is something now we have been talking about. We have moved away from the idea that gender is based on sex, man and woman, men and women. It's more about, because it's gone far wider than that, because now we realize that sex and gender, first of all, are not one and the same thing. And then now we have now realized that there are far more different gender orientations and gender representations than men and women. So we've started looking at the language of one sex and the other, the language of women, more in terms of performativity and diversity. There are more groups, gender groups, and not all uh, explanations are about. I'm in the previous slide, Prantana. Not everything is about the big perceptions, worldwide perceptions. Most ideas or most explanations, most behaviors can also be locally influenced. So now we have stopped looking at gender differences as a universal, uniform idea or notion. We have started looking at gender performances in language as more locally and more locally generated and diverse. Moving on. So when we critique gender articulations, we are beginning to critique essentialist and binary articulations. So we are now beginning to look more at diversity as well as intersectionality in terms of gender, sex, age, culture, language background, economic background, etc. Everything influences gender and gender use. So we no longer look at men and women as homogeneous categories. We have now come to realize the role of context and power in relation to gender use. We also realize that, like I mentioned just a minute ago, that all of these other forms of diversity influence the way we learn gender and we perform gender in different kinds of contexts, especially in educational contexts. I've also already mentioned intersectionality. Also, the way we we look at gender, uh, also in terms of ideologies which have again been influenced by political and economic changes across the world. We now know what is happening in certain parts of the world in terms of how women are treated, the expectations of women. So we have been critiquing that worldwide. So we know what is happening in different parts of the world, and this has also influenced the way we have begun to resist gender stereotyping, also in language and in teaching materials. Moving on quickly to textbooks, teaching materials, I realize I don't have much time. So we move on to gender bias. This is something that I got from the internet, and it's quite dated. But you see how we have traditionally been portraying different gender roles through the different visual representations of women and men. So moving forward, uh, we have stopped presenting gender, and a lot of it has changed because of the way, uh, yes, Archita, because of the way that studies have shown, uh, through perceptions taken from uh, teachers, students, and other groups in education, of how teaching materials are, in a big way, responsible for either perpetuating gender or critiquing it. So we have seen, for example, exclusion, subordination, and distortion, and also degradation. So I'm talking about this study. I'm not going to go into detail. So either women are excluded or they're represented as, in certain stereotypical ways, and or in less influential ways. Other studies, for example, another study done by Rosano, also talk about the same things. There are many more studies that I have now. If you look at the citations here, these are all studies that have continually they are continuing to show how representations of men and women are different in textbooks, and how this is affecting the way young children are growing up with notions of gender. Uh, there's one more study by Richards, which actually talked about very horrific representations. In our own context, we closer home, this is something that we see. Things like invisibility, stereotyping, imbalance, unreality, uh, something called cosmetic bias, where, Ranjana, I've moved on, and where we see how, on the surface, textbooks are seen to present gender balance, but deep down, the way the language suggests women's behavior and roles continues to perpetuate stereotyping. In our own, in my own class, last year, our student Jubilee Burman, Jubilee may be here today. She did her master's thesis on gender bias in textbooks, and her study, even though it was quite a modest study, it is, we're talking about now, the present. She also found a lot of un um, un um, well, not gender neutral language in NCRT class 11 and 12 textbooks. She looked at 4 textbooks, and she spoke to teachers and students, and she found that even now, even such textbooks do not really present gender neutral language and also visuals. So here's an excerpt from what she wrote. She's described how the textbook itself, how the textbooks, for example, perpetuate things like imbalance in gender representation. Male characters dominate the space. Words like mankind, chairman, manpower dominate, and these are terms we have come to accept as normal, and how these words also perpetuate gender imbalance. Also, the representation of women in emotional or domestic roles. Sibbern 2021 suggests that there are 5 ways we can resist this when we teach ELT materials, when we teach English, and when we use materials. First of all, it's a good idea to identify you know the stereotypical roles, such as, for example, stereotypical parenting roles, where the mother is shown taking care of children and the father is shown as a breadwinner. And then initiate a discussion. Think about, ask children to respond to whether they feel women are better suited. What are the ways in which we can challenge these kinds of notions? um, Personalize the experiences by asking children and young people to share their own ideas, and then reflect on how their socialization has been, and then improve the situation through an activity. So when we see materials in ELT that are gender imbalanced, this is perhaps one way in which we can we as teachers might be able to, uh, bring about a perception change in how language needs to be represented to show gender balance. Quickly moving on, there are now, thankfully, I was looking at NCRT school textbooks. Now we have these kinds of textbooks. You will find the woman bathing the child, but behind that you will find the father hanging clothes. So these visuals give good ideas to children as they grow up. These are, we are challenging stereotypical notions, and these visuals are very, very impactful and very powerful in building gender language and gender thought in young people. Similarly, in the we found this kind of, on the left you will see we found these stereotypical exercises in several lessons, and then we had them changed to uh, visuals of women in more, uh, in roles which are typically um, assigned to men. And so these exercises through language, to language exercises in the English textbook, we were able to challenge some of these conceptual notions. This is something I really find interesting. When I saw this textbook for the first time, there was a woman and a daughter. I said, no, 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 this won't do, let us change it. So we had our illustrator bring this in, and I love this because it's a very interesting recipe, and it gives a very good message about gender. Similarly, if you go move to the next pictures, the one on the left is a very typical traditional way of looking at a family. So when we talk about family and family roles, this is what we have all grown up with. I love the one on the right. This is, I heard, a textbook from Tamil Nadu, I think, which now shows different kinds of families. So these visual representations, mom and two children, two fathers and a child, take into account, other ways of looking at sexual orientation and also gender. These are good visuals to have. These are good ways of talking about or teaching about gender. Moving on, we can encourage non-sexist language in educational institutions by through deliberate inclusion of examples of human activities, interests, and points of view of women and perspectives of women. Now, I don't have much time, but I had an exercise that I'm going to stop very soon. Just leaving you with a few thoughts. These are some ways in which we can avoid, gender stereotyping, avoid using non-sexist language, where we consciously avoid not using the male pronoun everywhere. Moving on, how we can substitute or eliminate male centric language by using terms like chairperson instead of chairman, humanity instead of mankind, and so on. And also importantly, avoid male firstness. Rather than saying girls and, boys and girls, men and women, we have to practice saying girls and boys, women and men. And when we write emails, perhaps, I'm sure a lot of you already do, why not start by saying madam and sir rather than sir and ma'am? Moving on again, here are other ways. It's typical in Indian context to say, to introduce somebody or as, Mrs. Himesh Sharma. Well, why not use the first name? Why use Dr. Mrs. when you can, well, men don't do that. So, Dr. Agarwal, you don't have to say Dr. Mrs. Agarwal. Similarly, if the sex is unknown, we can use neutral terms. So, yeah, thank you for going there, Ranjana. I wanted us to practice a bit, but I don't think we will have time for that. But what, you can move to the next slide, where I have a few changed, things. So how we can cultivate gender sensitivity in language. So I want to leave you with these thoughts. It's important that we recognize and call out sex differences. We challenge norms of current behavior. We demolish the myth that the male is the norm. We do not judge men's language in terms of how men speak. We, in our workplaces, in our education spheres, in our classrooms, in our meetings. This is something I personally do all the time. I point out, personally do not use male centric or traditional stereotypical terminology. And I would request all of you to do that as well. To understand more about this, Ranjana, next slide. I find the Gender and Language Toolkit extremely useful. It's a very nicely packaged, easy to use, easy to understand tool, and I think, all of us would benefit from taking a look at this toolkit and designing our activities, our pedagogical practices, and our teaching around gender sensitive language. So, just coming to a close, today we looked at these two ideas, ways of how we can challenge andronormativity, and also how we can bring in diversity. And these are some, I'm going to leave you with some quotations from famous people. I love these quotes. I'll just leave the slide on. There are two slides. I've got a few quotes. I will leave this on for a minute for all of you to read. And I love what people like Shah Rukh Khan also say about how to treat women, about how to think and teach young people early about gender positive behavior. Moving on to the next slide, there are a few more quotes that I love, and that is all I will leave you with today. So, if you look at the last quote, what feminism means to me is that you don't let your gender define who you are. Uh, and this quote for me is important because it talks to women and makes them realize, or makes us think, that a lot of how we have been socialized has been through language, and a lot of how we think is influenced by language. And therefore, if we want our young men and our young women to grow up being gender positive, then it is a responsibility for all of us as teachers to ensure that the language we teach and we use in the classroom does not perpetuate stereotyping and has positive gender behavior. Thank you, and that's all from me today.
Thank you, ma'am, for that engaging talk. We will now take questions from the audience. Our first question is from the chat box. I read it out for you, ma'am. It's from Dr. Sumana Bandyopadhyay. She has asked, can neutral language be taught? Is there any course on neutral language?
There is no one course, but we in our department, we have introduced a course on gender in English language teaching. And if you want, I can suggest some works that I personally use, which I find very effective. And you can also use the gender toolkit. UNESCO has a good toolkit, and the one that I shared. And I think we ourselves need to start offering these courses. Even if there's no course, it is time that we introduce such courses, or at least modules on gender sensitive language within our school and college and university curriculum. I hope that answers Sumanna's question.
Thank you for your answer, ma'am. I'll check if there's any other question. If anyone wants to ask a question, you can please raise your hand. I can read them out, or you can ask them one by one. I'll just check
Hello.
if there's any. Yes. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Ashok Kumar.
Yeah. Yeah. I am Professor Ashok Mahanti, retired professor.
Sir, you're here?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I didn't realize you were here.
So I had only two questions. One is certain words defy our thinking regarding who is a bachelor. Are the divorcees not bachelor? Are the Christian priests are not bachelor? So certain words, when you talk about gender stereotyping, defy our common sense logic. What is your answer?
I agree. I mean, this is why we need to be very careful about not accepting all of these terminologies without critiquing them, without thinking about them. I mean, there are hundreds of words, thousands of words in the English language that perpetuate certain kinds of stereotyping. Bachelor is one. So, yes, I agree. Discussions such as these actually make young people understand that not all the language that we use is gender neutral. So,
Right.
yeah, so thank you for that. Yes.
Thank you very much. Only the last question. Only. That is, you didn't talk about neurosexism.
Yeah.
You didn't talk about ESP and language role in the changing scenario. I think you stock up from Cameron, Lakoff, and the later part of the 21st century. There are huge literature
Yes.
discussing the implication and the possibilities of gender
Yes.
biases and prejudices.
Yes.
So I am little confused about neurosexism. That is a reverse type of thought practices
Yes.
that ladies are IQ wise and EQ wise are better than the counterparts. So, like the NLP, like a natural language processing,
Yes.
these are all emerging theories. So,
True.
I think a little bit of exposure should have enlightened our gender texts. So,
Yes.
thank you very much. Such a
Thank you.
magnificent presentation. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for your answer. We have a question from the chat. It's from Kavita Ghosh. Ma'am, is it possible to erase the gender biasness which prevails not only in academics, rather in each and every aspect around?
I'm not too sure we can use words like erase. It is a huge responsibility, but we can do our bit in at least trying to set the record straight in our own classrooms. Bit by bit, if each one of us is conscious about the role that language plays in gender stereotyping and gender behavior, I think bit by bit we will be able to do it. But you know, education is not just within the hands of a teacher in the classroom. Education, is also outside. So we as teachers can definitely do our bit, and then we can support other people in society when they try to challenge these kinds of stereotyping. Now, erasing, I do not know, because it's a very big we are billions of people on the earth, so I'm not too sure, but yes, we can work towards that.
Thank you, ma'am. We have another question. It's from Nabodita Bhatt. What do you think about the grammar and language of Gen Z? Are they also based on gender inequality?
uh, I think Gen Z and now Gen Alpha are far more uh, educated in terms of how they look at men, women, and other genders. When we were growing up, we were only exposed to two ways of looking at gender. There's either male or female, men or women. But Gen Z has had far more exposure through the internet, through social networks, through visual media, things that we were not really we did not have access to. Our only source of information mostly was books, and some part of it movies. Now Gen Z has far more exposure, so I think they are also being subconsciously made to realize that stereotyping in any form is not desirable. So I think it's less work for us now with the awareness, but it is always useful and important to discuss it openly in the class.
Thank you, ma'am. I think Anita ma'am has raised her hand. Ma'am, you can unmute yourself. Please ask your question.
Thank you, Archita. Are there any other people lined up in the chat box? Are there any other
Yes, ma'am.
questions I would like
We have
part?
two more questions in the chat.
If there are two. Professor Borua, I just want to ask, I mean, I've been thinking about it as I was listening to you. Do you think English as a global language carries with it certain Western constructions of gender that may clash with local cultural understanding? And how should teachers navigate this tension in an ELT classroom? So this is
It is
kind
possible.
of a two.
I think it is possible that because English has developed from the Western world, I am sure there's a lot of underlying ways of looking at gender that has come to us from Western notions. However, in the last maybe 50 years or so, English has not really remained the language of the Western world. As David Crystal told us in 2001, the number of speakers of English from non-Western worlds had clearly by then, surpassed the number of English speakers from a Western world. So we have now, and as as students of language, we know how language keeps changing. So, over 50 years, years, the language itself changes, usage changes. So I think with the usage change, perceptions also change. So if we did now, maybe my generation grew up with a lot of Western influence on the language, English language. Maybe now that has changed a lot. Maybe now children growing up in these generations, in the modern generations, have, because they have been exposed to localized English in their own contexts. So I am sure that perceptions about certain terminology, certain grammatical forms, or even use may have changed. And therefore, in teaching, it is important that we call out these whenever we come across anything that we feel is an example of stereotyping, an illustration of gender stereotyping or gendered language or gender unfriendly language. This is perhaps the time when we can have a discussion with the language and the language users who do not speak English as a language at home. So these are speakers who might bring in their own cultural understanding, and that would lead to a much richer discussion and perhaps lead to a far more nuanced and conscious use of gender neutral or gender positive English language.
Yeah, I suppose when you talk about the course which the Department of ELT has introduced, and you've also suggested to the audience here that people can start their own courses and all. I suppose those materials will help students, use gender neutral language without sounding unnatural
Yes,
and forced.
absolutely.
Because to start with, it'll be, it'll sound very unnatural to them because they're not used to, even at home. They might
Correct.
be working in the academic courses, but so yeah, this was
Correct.
an interesting talk. Yeah, Archita, please move on with the next question.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Babu. Yeah.
Okay, so ma'am, we'll take one question from the chat. It's from Pooja Gupta. Is there a need to rewrite text or a need to ban text full of gender biasness?
Yes, definitely. Definitely, there's a need to do that. Now, if you're teaching, most of us teachers, whether at school, college, or university, most of us are not part of the textbook design groups and the textbook planning groups or the ones who select texts for the classes, for the textbooks. Not all of us are privileged in that way. For 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 people like us, then what is the solution? I think that is why we need to educate ourselves, and whenever we come across these kinds of language usage that we know are is going to perpetuate stereotyping, we can engage students. Older students can be given a task. You can give them examples of this kind of language and ask them what they think about it, and find out ways of changing the language so that it's more gender neutral. So I suppose that's one step forward, that we can that's one thing we can do without necessarily changing the textbook. Many of us are not in a position to change a textbook, but apart from that, we can also bring in our own materials. We can refer to stories or other material in the textbook and use that to illustrate similar things from our own cultures. We can get children to talk about what they see at home, what they have heard at home, and together build a set of rules. It's a wonderful idea, if you ask me, to design a set of rules at the beginning of a session, where you sit with children and you design your own rules and put it up on the on a wall, saying that we will use this kind of language, we will not use this kind of language. Doing something like that consciously might be a helpful exercise.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so
If I just can add,
yes,
uh,
ma'am.
a lot of changes need to be made at policy level also. So if you're, in your own institutions, I would encourage teachers to examine their own policies. For example, in our university, one of our students, Moitri Bharadwaj, last year she looked at the policies in our university to see how gender neutral they were, how gender positive they were. And she found out that several of our policies were very, very gender positive, but there are also policies that are not. So we have policies on sexual harassment at the workplace, but then there are generic policies, say about anti-ragging, which tend to use gender positive language. So if each one of us does this exercise and we look at our policies, our policies meaning whatever material we have that guide us in our institutions, we can take a look at that and do some research and bring it to the notice of management, bring it to the notice of NCERT, to our state boards. Together, if we all do that, I'm sure change will come.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, two of our participants have raised their hands. One is Yogesh Singla, I guess. If you are here, you can please unmute yourself and ask your question. Yogesh Singla.
Very great question. I just have a suggestion over here. Like, I am a senior secondary teacher in one of the schools in Haryana, and my observation is whenever we teach lessons to the students of actually senior secondary classes, we can actually trigger some discourses and debates in the
Yes.
classes, so that our students can become gender
Yes.
sensitized. So it's basically like the chapters Journey to the End of the Earth by Tishani
Mm,
Doshi,
mm,
who's a pioneer in this field, taking students. Now she is a woman and
mm,
she is taking students to Antarctica. So what are the consequences of and now there can be a debate which can be triggered, and then similarly there is a chapter by chapter Bholi in standard 10,
yeah.
who single-handedly challenged the whole society's male chauvinistic attitude. So
Yes.
such chapters are quite interesting to to tackle this issue of
Yes.
gender sensitivity.
Yes. Correct. I completely agree.
And and
And if there are,
and at the
if there
same
are,
time, yeah, please, ma'am, please carry on,
sorry.
ma'am.
No, I was just saying, if there are few, these are not many of such illustrative chapters, we can always bring in uh, from our own cultures, from our from other texts that we have read. As teachers, we all read. So you would be able to bring in other examples, other illustrations as well. And students can also be encouraged to do that. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, ma'am, that's fine. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. We have three questions from the chat. We'll take those. Before that, Haripriya Parik, she has raised her hand. If
Hello,
you want
ma'am.
to ask a question, please go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, Archita. Thank you for this wonderful presentation, ma'am. So much to learn, and already probably this was something that was going on in the brain. I just have one question. When you talked about the gender construction here, did you also mean involving the QNS, as we call it, or while changing the discourse in the classroom discourse, which is the most important thing, I think, to start from, or I think the base is where we can begin this from?
Yes, absolutely. So our own discourse has to change. So pedagogy involves or inherently has discourse. So if we
Yes, ma'am.
start reflecting on our own discourse, simple things like classroom explanations and instructions, and watch out for the way we use language, and we encourage students to do that while discussing lessons, and also outside of the actual teaching or academic discourse, the conversational discourses that we also use within our educational institutions. Everywhere there is hope for bringing in sensitivity and bringing in gender awareness. I agree.
And
Yeah.
ma'am, is this also possible that this awareness can be raised in the teacher education courses so that a bigger impact can be made through that? Because we do
Yes.
not have a say in the government policies, or probably going about material designing for each and every class, or all of that. So that's possible, right, ma'am?
That's a wonderful suggestion, Haripriya. Teacher education is a really important area where we need to bring in these ideas. And this is what we are trying to do in our own department, which is also a teacher education department, in the sense that our masters in English language teaching or PhDs are also preparing many people to teach. So yes, definitely, teacher education institutions and programs of study definitely need this kind of discourse.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Haripriya. Thank you, ma'am, for the answer. We will take one last question since we are running out of time. It's from Kapita Shome from the chat. She's asking, can we teach about this in primary schools? If yes, then how? I mean, what tiny steps can we take to help the students to understand the concept?
I think at primary level, it is more about giving children visual representation of correct or appropriate gender language and behavior and perception. But definitely use gender friendly language with children, teach them that, so that as they grow up, they use gender positive language as a default. Like Anita ma'am said, it doesn't sound weird to them if they grow up hearing gender sensitive, gender correct, gender positive language around them. They will also imbibe that, and they will also start using that kind of language, and their thinking will also be influenced through the language that they speak. So beginning with visual representations which are gender friendly, and the use of language in very simple ways, such as not using the male pronoun as the generic, not referring to um, another colleague as Dr. Mrs., or things like that, or using, like we do now, the plural pronoun to refer to human beings, or saying, not saying chairman, for example, saying chairperson. Small things like that is what children grow up hearing, and that brings, makes them grow up with gender positive behavior.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kabita, for that question.
Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our session of questions. I would like to thank ma'am for giving us your time and our audience for your presence and participation. I will now hand it back to Devapriya for the closing remarks.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your insights on gender construction through language, reflecting on gender in discourse in English language teaching. I would like to remind the participants to kindly fill up the feedback form by today through the link provided in the chat box so that we can email the soft copies of the certificates to the participants within a week. We also thank our audience for their active participation in the webinar today. Do stay connected with the ELTI Guwahati chapter for our upcoming events. Until next time, stay safe and inspired. Now, I would request everyone to turn on their cameras and smile for a group photo.
I would also like to thank you all for being so supportive and the audience for asking such interesting questions and for being so patient. Thank you. How long will you make us smile and hold our pose?
I think it's done, Archita, isn't it?
Ashita, you're muted.
Sorry, I think not everyone is showing. Let me just check.
Let's start cooking whatever you have, and as
Yes, ma'am.
people can look at it more.
We're all smiling, Archita.
I know.
I think all,
So
now in my screen it's only 10 people they are showing, other
that's
32
a,
people. Is that fine? Should I take a screenshot?
please take the other people who are smiling. They've been smiling
Sorry, I'm so
for
sorry.
a long
Okay.
time.
I'll take a screenshot.
Yes, please.
Yes, done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye, Kunal.
Archita, if you have, yeah,
I think
that's okay.
we
I think
have.
we should all leave and then maybe talk.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you.
close the meeting. Yeah, close the meeting.
Yes.